Hey, good afternoon, TiEcon. It's so wonderful to be back together in real life here at the Santa Clara Convention Center. I'm Andy Tsao, I'm Managing Director at Silicon Valley Bank. Yes, we've been in the news lately, but we're back as a division of First Citizens Bank. And I'm a proud board member here at Silicon Valley Bank. Sorry, you threw me off here. A proud board member here at TI, and of course, Silicon Valley Bank and TI go back all the way since the inception of TI. We've been great partners. I have the honor of introducing our next grand keynote speaker and welcoming back our dear friend to TI, Navin Chaddha, Managing Director of Mayfield, who will be interviewed by Kenrick Cai of Forbes and covering the venture capital market conditions, which may not be as gloomy as it seems. Navin leads Mayfield as managing director, and under his leadership, Mayfield has raised 6 funds and guided over 80 companies to positive outcomes. He has been named a Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum and has made the Forbes Midas List of top tech investors 14 times, including twice in the top 5. Navin's investments have created over 120 billion in equity value and more than 40,000 jobs. Navin was one of the earliest Silicon Valley investors to leverage the promise of tech in India. He is an active philanthropist, supports education, diversity, equity, inclusion, and food scarcity groups. Kenrick Cai is a senior reporter for technology covering venture capital and startups. He's based in San Francisco and was editor of the AI 50 list, which was published in April. He is a graduate of Duke University, and we'll turn it over to Kenrick and Navin. Thank you.
All right, how's it going, Navin?
It's going well.
Thank you for the introduction, Andy. I'll do a quick update. Andy, I think you said Navin is a 14-time Midas lister. Today was like venture capital's Christmas, if anyone's following VC, and so we just published our new Midas list today, and Navin is now a 15-time top 100 VC in the world, and rank at number 5 this year. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's always happens because of many of the entrepreneurs in the room.
Absolutely.
Right? Like we need to remember as VCs what we do.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. Venture capital, by way of doing some prep for this, I was watching your panel with my colleague Alex Conrad from, I think, 2 years ago, and you had mentioned at the time that there were just too much VC funds. Like, I think you said, like, I don't know if there's enough companies to be throwing out like $160 billion. But obviously we're in very different times now with a lot of gloom and not a lot of that optimism anymore. So what is going on in venture capital exactly, and what's your take on all that?
Yeah, I think like many people who might know me, can you hear me? Okay, like I'm an optimist, right? So I think all is not gloom. My feeling is crisis is only an opportunity for the bold, and many iconic companies are going to get created in this environment. So for the entrepreneurs, it's time to lean forward to create the next set of exciting companies. And there is not $250 to $300 billion of venture capital anymore, but there still will be $80 to $100 billion of venture capital. And good companies, good entrepreneurs will get funded. The valuations may not be the same, but this is the time to jump in and go after real pain points and real problems the world is facing. Get financed. It's easy to hire talent than it used to be. And big companies are not going to go do small projects. So it's a very exciting time to do new things, but at the same time, with the banking crisis that happens every day, one has to be mindful. But new company creation, very bullish.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a point that I think I've heard a lot just talking to venture capitalists like you. Now is a great time to be starting a company, and I think There are a lot of reflections to the companies that started in 2000, the dot-com crash, and 2008. Does this, where we're in right now, does it feel parallel to 2000 or 2008, or is it a different beast?
What I would say is 2008, it took a while for things to adjust, and it was primarily East Coast and the banking system in New York. The effect wasn't as much felt in the tech sector, but this time, before even the layoffs happened, the public markets had cratered, right? Like, for example, software multiples at the end of 2021 used to be 25x next 12 months. A year later, they were like 7x.
Yeah.
Today, they are 5.2x. So the public markets have corrected. But the difference is companies are flushed with cash. IT spending is there, consumer spending is there. So my feeling is we'll come out of this faster, but the comparison I would draw to is more 2000, where the tech industry did get impacted as much, but it's the same playbook, right? Like many great companies were created post 2008 crisis, and it's going to happen again.
Yeah. So what are you looking for when you're considering, when you're looking at a pitch from a startup these days? Is it different than what you were looking for 2 years ago when the market was going all up and to the right?
Yeah, so I would say Mayfield and me personally, we tend to, and many of our entrepreneurs maybe in the room, we tend to make bets on people first, and people don't change in up markets and down markets. So at the stage we invest, which is the idea stage typically, or the inception stage, you're just looking for great people who have the right set of values, they're missionary. But the difference from 2 years back, when at least Mayfield had slowed down, to today is, I think the business plans are more sane.
Yeah.
People know that with very little money, they have to find product market fit and be capital efficient. That was not the case. People were just buying growth 2 years back, 3 years back at any cost, and never worrying about any of the stuff, right? To build a great business, not only do you need to grow top line, but take your losses and also start moving it in the other direction. Otherwise, you're going to run on borrowed money all the time. Can't do that. So I think the entrepreneurs are much more realistic. They're building saner plans. The valuations, their expectations are in the right zone. So the unhealthiness in the ecosystem is getting taken care of, and it's the Darwinian theory, right? There's only so much things that can go out of whack, and in the long run, as Warren Buffett says, you can't beat markets, and things just normalize. And it's a marathon, so just wait. But this is the time. So a lot of sanity, a lot of practicalism, a lot of rationalism has come into the environment.
Are you seeing more founders that are? Is it a higher quantity of founders that are sane, or is it just the proportion of founders that are high quality have increased?
I think now it's founders who really want to be founders.
Yeah.
And they're just not doing a company for being a founder, being a cool thing, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Money is not going to be cheap. The free debt markets which are available are gone, and public markets are shut down. M&A isn't there. So somebody to jump in as an entrepreneur, it goes back to what it used to be, has to be willing to give it all. So this is where, right, like the oil and water will separate. So real entrepreneurs are going to come forward, and they're going to go through any wall and essentially create big companies. So it's not cool. It's going to be tough, but it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, what another added element to the toughness, right, is not just the amount of venture dollars drying up, but what's going on with the banking, with SVB. So what is happening? Have we kind of gotten over the hump of SVB, or we just saw the news with First Republic? Where are things headed from here, from your vantage point?
I think we aren't done, and the reason is we believe in technology investments which can be responsible investments, and technology should be used to amplify companies and make humans superhumans. A lot of the bring downs of the bank is thanks to the technologies many of us have funded called social media, right? So it's a contagion, it's a virus, it's spreading. And when you and I were chatting last week, right? Like, yeah, FRC, people didn't know what will happen to them, right?
Yeah.
Now it's another bank, then it's Western Alliance, then it just will keep going on. And the Fed, that's why with FDIC is stepping in and saying like, hey, we're going to guarantee these deposits. I don't think we're done, right? We're not done. This is worse for the mid-sized banks where our startups bank. It's more difficult than what the mortgage crisis was, right? Like half the economy is small businesses. The big banks don't want to service these kinds of companies which make losses because it's high risk. So it's a big problem for venture capital. It's a big problem for small businesses, and it's a big problem for America.
Yeah. So what does that mean for all the entrepreneurs here in the room and all the people working at those types of companies?
Call VCs. They have money. We have too much money still, right? Like too much dry powder. And no, jokes apart, right? Like this is how companies used to get created in the 80s and 90s. And many of the people like Vish who are still involved with TiE, like they created those companies on credit cards and they've seen that stuff, right? So I think there will be money, but it will be equity. The low options of debt will be just hard, right? And then fewer and fewer companies will get financed and the best ideas will pop up to the top. And I think entrepreneurs have to be realistic, and that's where having less money is actually better, because startups, my belief is, don't die of starvation, they die of indigestion. That's what too much money did in the ecosystem, right? Everybody was an entrepreneur, everything was cool, and you go take your idea and sell it to other companies of your VC firms, of your incubator, and show you have 50 customers. But those are all your friends. Not a single customer you got was a real customer. So that's all going to essentially change now.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's good because entrepreneurs are the one doing the real stuff, right? They're putting their families, their time, their effort, and they're attracting other employees. So doing it the right way is the best thing that can happen. So this is tough times, but this was needed.
Are there any Mayfield portfolio companies that have eaten a little bit too much, gotten some indigestion? What are you telling them?
We basically started tightening the belt in actually second half of 2021, and we told companies, hey, cash is the only thing you can control. You can't control your revenues, so control your spend. And at any point, we've been telling them without debt, have 2 years of runway. So either raise money, don't care about valuation. And in those days, companies could raise money. And in 2022, the first half, a lot of our companies raised money. And at the end of Q1, out of our active portfolio, I would say like 85% of the companies had more than 2 years of runway. So sometimes in life, right, like paranoia helps. And that's what our feeling was. This is not sustainable. So do we still have companies today that have to raise money? Yeah, to this quarter, to next quarter, to the following quarter. So not that many, but the indigestion and the tightening started happening 18 months back. And those were tough conversations, right? And did we make mistakes? Did others make mistakes? All of us, we're all humans, right? People get carried away.
So what does it take to raise money in this environment now?
So I would say as an entrepreneur, if you're starting a company, make sure first and foremost, you want to be an entrepreneur, because VCs are going to figure it out. No term sheet is coming in a day. It's not coming virtually. It's going to take time. Second thing, make sure the problem you're solving, you have validated it, whether it's a consumer problem, whether it's a business problem. Don't just come in and pitch and say like, hey, I think my technology will do this. Do what? Right? So So that's where there'll be a lot of focus is making sure you want to be an entrepreneur. Number two, you're solving a problem which is a big pain point, hopefully top 3 for your customer. Have you assembled a team? Just early team to be able to do it together, because one man, you can't build, one man, one woman can't build a company, if you will. So that's what I would say. Make sure you want to be an entrepreneur, have a very well-defined problem, and have the early semblance of a team, and then go.
Absolutely.
Because you will never know the size of the market. At the inception stage where Mayfield invests, to ask somebody, what's your TAM, is the worst question a VC can ask. Most of the companies which become big have no TAM. Literally, they don't.
That's right.
They create new markets. They are blue ocean companies. So that's why, in my mind, right, but you need that clarity. You need that wedge that I'm going to sell a painkiller, not a vitamin, right? And that's the key thing. And then you have to show with money, what are you going to achieve to get the next round done?
Totally. I think that's one of the really cool and special things about Mayfield is you guys partner with companies at the inception when there's hardly a company yet, not a market yet, as you say, and you partner with them and follow them really closely on the journey as they keep on growing and growing. Could you talk a little bit more about just what is the difference between early stage for startups and later stage, and especially in this kind of environment? Like, what is the difference for a company being at the early stage versus at the later stage?
Yeah, so Mayfield, right, like our filters are more early stage because that's where we start investing. And then we do see companies all the way from inception to IPO and beyond. So for the early stage, I already mentioned, right, it's going to be the founder and the team. Founders and the team they have, and are they solving a real painkiller problem for somebody? Okay? When it becomes mid-stage, right, people are going to look at, hey, are there early semblance of a company which can do like $100 million in revenue? If they're 5-10 million in revenues, can they get to $100 million in revenue? Does this company have a well-defined ICP, an ideal customer profile? Do they have product market fit? They're going to look at all kinds of metrics. What's your magic number? Like, you spend $1, how long does it take to get it back? So it becomes, starting Series C, very metrics oriented, and either you have them or you don't. But the toughest round for entrepreneurs once they raise the first round is going to be Series B, because neither do you have the metrics to be a growth stage company with more than 10 million in revenues, and neither you're an early stage company. So that's where the valley of death is going to be. It's going to be seed to A, and then A to B, and then either companies will cross the chasm or they won't, right? So initial bets have to be founder bets. That's why very few people want to invest at that stage. And then as companies get further along, you look at the metrics. You have more things to look at. You can call customers, right? When you invest on a paper and pencil idea, there's nothing, right? Like, customers may not even know such a thing can exist.
Yeah. What are some, are there like any common characteristics or just things that stand out to you about the investments you've made that made you feel like, you know, this person has the ability to potentially cross that valley of death?
Yeah, so I think, so essentially, right, like, some of this is like Mayfield's secret sauce, because evaluating founders is really an art. It's not a science, and we joke about it. Every interaction we're doing with a founder, it's getting documented. Like, we didn't have AI, but we have pattern recognition as humans, and we are trying to do an X-ray on the founder. And some characteristics I can talk about, and some I have to keep confidential. So first and foremost, right, like in people, it all starts with integrity, and for Mayfield, and for the investments I've led, and it depends in really understanding what are their values. And when you invested them at the idea stage, you need to have alignment on values, right? You think, the entrepreneur thinks they're playing football, and having grown up in India, football, I think they're playing with the feet, versus they are saying, I'm going to play with my hand. So you have to spend time to essentially get on the same page on values. I think entrepreneurs who become successful, I would say they have very high EQ. Their emotional quotient is higher than their intellectual quotient. They're team players, because to build a company, it can't just be about I. It has to be about your company, right? For Mayfield to win, it's not an I, it's a we sport. Building companies, you can be an independent contractor or consultant. They have to put their team first than themselves. They need to be secure in their skin, because if they're not secure, they'll get defensive, they'll do all kinds of weird stuff, they won't be transparent. And clearly, right, like they need to have the hunger to go through any wall, to be able to drive a car even through their VCs, right? Just bulldoze their way, because that's what it takes to create iconic companies, because you're going to hear 1,000 no's, maybe 10,000 no's, then one yes. And that's what happens with the best companies. No VC finances them. We're just wrong. We go wrong more often, right? You meet 4,000 companies at Mayfield, we invest in 8. We're bound to go wrong. It's the same way, right? Like
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's same for entrepreneur, it's same for VCs, right? Like it's what do you do? So I would say those are some of the common characteristics. And the last one I would say is they have empathy. It's very important, right? Like to have empathy and to lead with empathy. So I think those are some of the characteristics, and we try to spend 15, 20, 30 hours with entrepreneurs in getting to know each other, even at the stage we invest at, even before we think of giving a term sheet or even discussing terms or any other thing. It's very important. It's a people business. This is a services industry.
Totally,
right?
totally.
There's no machines here, right? Like they don't exist.
Cool. Well, I guess to wrap up, I'd be curious, not even just from a journalist standpoint, but from like a consumer standpoint, about your venture capital goggles on where technology is headed next, and some of the places that you're really interested in. I mean, I guess to start with AI, like what's going on with AI? Is it all hype, or is there something really real there this time?
I think it's real. So what I would say is, for the first time with cloud computing, the AI models and the prevalence of GPUs and AI ML processors, machines can do things which a human can't do. So this notion of human-centered AI or human in the middle is real. So there's going to be real end user use cases where AI can actually make humans superhumans. And if you are doing responsible AI companies, humans will adopt you, right? Let's take an example. Security. I don't know how, I can't see how many people in the room are either security entrepreneurs or are responsible for security. There's like 1 billion events which are going on, right? Like how do you even know? It's a needle in the haystack problem. So essentially, that's what AI can help you. It can point and say, hey, just look at these 20 things, right? Similarly, the sales guys sitting through all their emails and everything, they're like 1,000 emails. Where do I focus? Similarly, a customer success manager is sitting and saying, which customer is going to churn?
Yeah.
Which customer will upsell? So that's what machines can do. Rather than replace humans, they can amplify them. They can make them superhumans, right? So we are very, very bullish on AI. Today, the hype is more around AI infrastructure, AI models, all the middleware that is needed. But if this gets fixed, the top layer is where the opportunity is. And there is a watershed moment that has happened. I should have started with that. Most of the big companies that get created are when a new interface comes out, right? So many of us maybe like weren't entrepreneurs or VCs, neither was I, in the client server era. Like when the PC came out, new user interface, huge plethora of consumer and business companies got created. Next wave, browser, 95, 96. Next 5 years, look at the amount of iconic companies that got created. Next user interface, iPhone, 2008, App Store, 2009. Next 5 years, all the companies we talk about today on the Midas list, on all those things are because of that creation. So we have been waiting for the last 5, 7 years. What's that moment? What's the browser moment? What's the iPhone moment? Because we thought it'll be glasses, it'll be wearables, it'll be AirPods, it'll be Alexa, it'll be this, that. I think finally it's come. It's ChatGPT. That's the way, right? Like people are going to interact. That's the human-computer interface. And once people see that, they will expect it out of every business app, every business interaction, right? Look, the success of social media, WhatsApp, SMS, which is iMessage. You look at email. People don't make phone calls. People just instantly text.
Are you using any of this new ChatGPT stuff in your day-to-day yet?
I am, right? Like you have to, otherwise AI will eat me and it will eat Mayfield. So you have to consume these technologies. So yeah, we are using all these products to figure out.
What does that look like? Like how are you using it?
Basically, right, research has become like very, very easy, because to sit and read maps and like to figure out what customers are buying, what's the market size, like it's taking like hours of work. You just type it in, answers come out. And they may not be 100% accurate, may not be 99%, but as human in the loop, they cut 80 to 85% of the work today. It's the same. Speech recognition is there too. So I think this is real. This is real. And as consumers interact with this technology, they're going to walk into work and say, I expect the same. I'm not going to sit and enter SQL queries to see what the data is. I'm just going to write and say in English, hey, tell me which customer is going to churn. Answers will come out.
Whole new world. All right. Well, I know we're out of time. I guess your last thoughts on everyone's thinking about AI, but what else are you thinking of that you're excited about for the future of technology?
So I think there are two things. Silicon Valley is about deep tech. I think with all the advent which has happened in tech, I would leave two thoughts with people. One is look at biology, not biotech. That was the Amgen, Genentech moment that happened in the 70s and then 80s. Look at biology as a fundamental technology and look at the intersection of biology and engineering and see what problems it can solve. And don't only look at biology, look at other sciences, right? To make computers faster, you have to do physics, right? So take your IT experience and see if it can be applied in engineering biology to solve the planetary health problem. So that's one area we are very, very bullish on. The second area I would say I would go on the other side is this notion of a citizen developer. And what I mean by that is people know a lot of developer-focused companies have gotten created. But how many developers are there? 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, 40 million. But there are a billion users who use Google Apps. They use Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint. They need to create the next generation of applications. So to me, there'll be two things. Yes, institutions will be there. There'll be CXOs, which will be CMO, CRO, head of HR, head of IT, CTOs. But the individual person who's doing a function, a knowledge worker, how do you help them? Like they were dev tools focused companies, there'll be knowledge or citizen developer focused companies which will come and say, customer success person. Do they really need an analyst? Do they really need to understand business intelligence, or how do they code? Abstract all this stuff. DevOps, we have companies in the audience, they do the same thing. So what happened for developers is going to happen for every other profession, and that TAM is 10x of the TAM of developers. So that's my call to people. Look outside, just keep looking at tech, look at physics, look at biology, bring back silicon to Silicon Valley with the renaissance of semiconductors, look at human and planetary health. Those I would say are deep tech. But then think out of the box that why should only the CIO or a CMO buy a thing? Go after the individual. And I would leave the thought with people, as I said with AI, it's the era of human-centered AI. Similarly, technologies should be used to create ROI, but not return on investment, but rise of individual. And companies which can do that will do great.
Absolutely. A call to us all. Well, thank you for your time, Navin. This was a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.